Hey everyone, this is Mr. Everything, and today I have an unboxing, maybe some setup and overview of this nice 27-inch curved. And we're also going to take a look at this Samsung monitor today too. So the first thing I wanted to get into here is I have a Samsung curved monitor I picked up a few years ago. I love it. And the only reason I'm getting this is just I kind of regretted the 24-inch when I got it, and I wanted to upgrade to 27, but I didn't want to spend more just to go 3 inches bigger. So I got this gaming monitor just because it has 1440p and a 144 hertz refresh rate. You can see here is the technical model number, and I ordered this off Amazon and it came just like this, which I'm not sure if I should think is good or bad, because I did have to order a DisplayPort cable, and so when it's multiple things, usually they put it in a big box, and then you would have just their little airbags or their poor packaging. So it's probably better that this came separately, just the label on it, rather than it being a big box where it's shifting around. This way, this box is packed very well, and I don't see any big gouges or anything. So one thing that I don't know if you'll appreciate is a proper way to open the box. And I remember my very first job, first day one, I was taught it's kind of hard to work around the tripod, but cut from the sides, lift it up, and then cut that way so you don't cut the material inside, which instead of just getting a knife and stabbing it like everyone else on YouTube seems to do. And you can see this reminds me of when I did the old one. It's kind of funny, 4 years later, the packaging's like this recycled cardboard, which whatever. But it's not laminated, it's black and white instructions. Again, not a big deal, but you can just tell everything's been cheapened up. But as long as the monitor itself is better, then that's fine. So here's the stand, which again I can tell is thinner and not as nice as the one that went with my just standard 1080p Samsung monitor. It was much wider, which I'm not sure if that really helped with the footprint balance any. And it was also like a brushed metal, and this is just a glossy plastic, which looks nice now, but it'll probably get covered in scratches over the years. I'm surprised it's actually pretty sturdy. Aside from this metal here, there might be a little more, just some really hard plastic, because this is a VESA mount monitor, so if I have any trouble, I see on Amazon you can just buy a VESA mount stand. This is the back plate, so you can cover the ports on the back of the monitor, which is nice, so that's a nice touch. And out of courtesy, I'm trying to do this with the fans and the air conditioner off, and I'm just dying. So I should try and get through this kind of quick. This is the other part of the stand, which I'll probably put together off camera. I'm not sure. I don't think. If you can't figure out how to put this stand together, you probably have no business buying a gaming monitor. Now obviously, it's going to slide into here, and then these screws, Phillips head will get tightened down. I think that's fairly rudimentary. The older one, the articulating arm, is you had to put that on, but it's already attached on this newer model. And here's the accessories box. And I guess I'll just do a bunch of complaining. Another thing, that the prior model had the power brick, but it was in line, so it went to your monitor like with this barrel plug into a power brick and then into a stand, which I much prefer, because you can just hide this in your cable management. And with this one, this is going to be on your outlet or your power strip, which is bulky and going to look bad, so I'm not as big of a fan of that. But one improvement in the 4 years is now they're nice enough to give you an HDMI cable instead of the generic VGA that you got in 2015 of that model. one issue with buying monitors and computers on Amazon, even though I think it's probably a small percentage, is they can be damaged and destroyed in shipping. So obviously that's my main concern, is that this wasn't damaged in shipping. Now, at least Amazon's very good with returns, so if there is any issue, but you only have 30 days. Now, most of the time I think when you get an electronic, if it's going to be defective, it's usually straight out of the box, or probably very quickly. But I do know some people said over time you would have lines in the screen or something, but then a lot of people don't take care of things. My monitor, the 4-year-old one, still doesn't have any marks on it or anything, and I see people selling used monitors that look like they were covered in like Cheeto fingerprints, and you wonder how are they doing that to the monitor that shouldn't really be touched. You can see there, for those that are wondering, I believe HDMI 1, I think HDMI 1 is the lower priority. I think HDMI 2 can support HDMI 2.0, I'm not too familiar. And then the DisplayPort usually is what you go with. That's what I'll be using with a Mac Mini. And then you have your headphone out, and then the power on the right, and then this Kensington lock there. And again, as I mentioned, this one has this already installed compared to the old one where you put the base together and that went in. So the base just goes into this part already, and there's the VESA mount. If I would need to go that way, I can hook one up very simply. I also wanted to point out, I noticed this is on the inside of this little door here, which will work for your cable management. I kind of couldn't figure out what this was for. Like at first I thought it was supposed to hide that, but that made no sense. But I believe that's if you remove this, again, if you want to go off that VESA mount, you could probably just leave this on. I don't know if it would hit that if you're on a monitor arm that comes out that way, but if you're on a stand, which is probably what I would get, then this probably would be in the way. And you can see there's some cable management here. Maybe there's like a hole and you can like get to the screen, like the backlighting or something, and this would seal it off so dust doesn't show up on the I don't know. You would think it would just be a plastic recession, but since they provide you this, maybe it goes the whole way through. But that is, I think this would fold and seal it, because it looks like they're sealing it, which is, at least it's thought out, but I don't fully understand that, and I don't want to bother taking this off unless I actually need to. But I did want to mention that. Again, this was very simple to do, just slide it in. The screws go in a little tight, but I don't think they were cross-threaded. You don't need to be tightening them ridiculous, just once they get tight, they're good. And again, I noticed this already has some scratches in it. I'm not sure if that was from my doing or just how it came, which is something you just have to deal with. And this is pretty simple. And just like that, it's on there. I don't know how easy it would come back off, but it's on there. Here's the specs on the power supply, if this is helpful. They really couldn't make it any harder to read, like glossy, and then trying to pick it up on black. I noticed this cable is only about 6 feet long. Just went from arm to arm. That's definitely going to really be pushing it, so I feel like with most people that's probably going to be an issue. I think, again, that other style of the brick in line to where it wasn't on that, first of all, I think you could just plug a regular type of power cord on the end, because it was just that generic kind that plugs into the box. So hopefully I can do it without an extension cord, because then that's just one more unnecessary extension cord into a power strip, which why can't they just give you a little bit more length on that? But I do think it'll probably work, but there probably will be very little slack in it. And here's a quick shot with what I'm working with. Again, that monitor was just fine. See, I'm kind of in a cramped workspace, so I couldn't really go any bigger than 27 if I wanted to. I'll probably get a little bit more into this when I get the other one set up. But again, that was a very fine monitor, but I just want something a little bit bigger, a little bit newer, and it's basically going to carry on the same thing, Samsung curved, and fit in that same spot. Okay, so I have everything set up, and again, that the power cord, I mean, they had to put it on this side so it connects up here, and it's really pushing like the length that you could run with. And I did notice it looks like the monitor is a little tilted this way, and I'm not sure if it's in the stand or how that's attached to it, or if it's my desk, because I didn't notice it with the other monitor. I might check the level on my desk, but I have those little rubber feet that I could probably put. Just I have a whole bag of them, just one of those to lift it up. And if this stands too wobbly, which I think it probably will be, because this little drafting desk is really easy to bump and make it shake violently, I might just get, they're like $25 on Amazon, I might just get a good Visa mount stand that have the big solid block like you used to get in monitors back when they were a little bit heftier, at least in the stand. And I'm going to do a first boot. I'm connected on HDMI 2 to my Mac Mini. I'm going to use DisplayPort, but I've never used it before, and my Mac's currently configured with 1080p HDMI, so I'm just going to pick up on that for the first boot and make sure everything even works, and then I'll configure it and try the other inputs as well. So as I'm here just stewing in my own pool of fear, anxiety, and a lot of sweat, I'm going to go ahead and try the first boot. And hopefully of course the monitor's not on, so, but we do have power with that little blue light, and we should be probably still on the Apple. And I'm on the wrong HDMI. There we go. And so far so good. Oh, there we go. That is quite a relief. And this, I'm no resolution or monitor expert, so you have to try not to get too offended. But I'm not sure. This is capable, I think, like 2560 by 1600. And this monitor's, as you can see here, the optimal resolution, as it's saying. Since I'm plugged in on HDMI 2, I think this is capable of doing that again. I'm not an expert on any of this. I'm just remembering that the 2012 Mac Mini only does 1080p on HDMI, which is why I bought a DisplayPort. So that was explaining me being ridiculous. I'm going to keep this in for the monetization, that 10-minute. So this was just to check, make sure everything works. I should probably bring up a few things, which I'll do in a moment. I don't want to waste too much time here. I'll bring up a black screen, a white screen, check for any dead pixels really quick. If there is one, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to send it back because it looks so good. If there's a couple, I definitely will. But so far, just from this distance at the camera, it looks fine. And I want to do that. I'll come back, and then I'm going to get it all set up, try the DisplayPort, and I think I'll be have my setup complete. So I brought up this full screen, this white image. I'm not sure how well this comes across on the camera. It's much brighter in person. It's really bright. From what I can tell, I don't see any dead pixels, and I'm not sure how you can really calibrate with a white image. Aside from the white, looks pretty good to me. This is a VA panel, vertical alignment. Again, it doesn't really translate too great on the camera. And what might be a little more telling is this full screen black image. I could be wrong. I know this is, I think it's called like full array dimming. I'm not sure what the difference is. This, like, where it gets really technical beyond me and honestly beyond what I care. I think someone said there was like 8 zones, so I'm not sure if that's different than there's like local array dimming or something. I know it's not edge lit, and I believe that's why you can see like brighter spots. It's not horrible, and it looks like it's a little bit worse on the bottom than it is on the top. I don't think it'll ever be anything that I find distracting, And I think this is again a common thing with VA panels. There's really no reason to not buy a VA panel if it's TN. I don't know. I think that was more of the old gaming monitors, but now I feel like the technology's probably caught up. And then just the IPS LED, which is a little more generic. But I personally like the VA. I think they have the good contrast ratio. I think they're a little bit more vivid on color. And as I'm saying all this, I actually do see one dead pixel on here, which is kind of disappointing. And of course, it has to be like right in the middle. I don't think I would return it for this. I don't think it's worth it because I can hardly spot it, but it is right there. I might zoom in on it. From what I can tell, I can't even pick it up on camera. And honestly, I didn't even notice it until I stood up. And then I saw it, so it doesn't even seem to be visible at all angles. So as long as it's not visible when I'm looking directly on it, I can probably overlook it. I've had, not with any Apple devices, but when I used to have Android tablets, almost all of them would have one pixel somewhere that would be burnt or dead. And I'm not sure if they developed or they just come like that from the factory. It'd be a little different if it was clear on the edge or something. But as long as the pros outweigh the cons, I'll probably overlook that. And it's really, this isn't the time to tell. Once I have it set up with the resolution I want, where I want it placed at, and then watch a few things and have it calibrated, I'll probably be able to make a decision whether that would be an issue or not. But that is something, at least mine's not busted or bashed, and there's no lines in it or anything acting up, at least yet. But I do have one dead pixel, and I didn't have that with my prior Samsung monitor. For the DisplayPort cable, this is what I'm using, an Ivanki or Ivanki, I'm not sure. 6.6 foot DisplayPort to mini DisplayPort slash Thunderbolt, which the Mac Mini just uses the Thunderbolt 1, this model anyway. There was a couple others on there, that's just what I'm using, I don't think it really matters. And then my HDMI, I just used my same Amazon basic HDMI for that input. And here is the old Samsung monitor, which I pretty much have everything set up for the new one. And you can see it's basically identical, same type of curved display, basically same profile. Both of them use the same type of kind of like, it's like almost glossy, but it is matte. It's just a very smooth and polished matte. You can see, you can kind of tell just by my hand reflection there. It is a little bit glossy, but when there's a display on, you really don't pick up. You'll get a light bit of glare if I aim it up, but it's not like a straight reflection. But that's the same on this one, which I'll go into. A few things I liked about this one is you can see the base is a bit bigger, and as I said, I think you can kind of tell it's a brushed aluminum. This is really nitpicky, but the main thing that I noticed, without hopefully hitting this good one, this display actually tilts. And the other one is fixed. It can't move, which is kind of disappointing. And you can see some comparison here, but because this one, you built the stand and it went into it. That's not a huge amount of a difference, obviously, but, and this one sticks out a little further, but again, I guess probably because it's more advanced technology, it might need a little more room for the drivers inside, or maybe just the cooling. And this one has the button here on the side, which I kind of got used to, but that doesn't really matter. But it was a nice big button. The other one's a little bit smaller, which I'll get into, but this is just a comparison to the old one that I am replacing it with. And this is what I was talking about with the older Samsung. Obviously you can't use it because this is a different wattage, but it was very nice. Yeah, if you needed longer length, you could just put a longer of this generic style cable that went into the computer, and then it even had a nice angled one. Why they couldn't have done that, instead of giving you that big brick on the plug. They should have did this. This one I measured is 10 feet long. Makes everything so much easier. It's thin up here. It makes it easy to cable manage. You can tuck this under behind your computer under a desk. That's again something they did better on the older model. Now you can probably see all my knickknacks back here, but you can see the cable management and a little bit of that braided display port, and then the power and the HDMI. Just have it hooked up so I wouldn't have to do it later. And the routing there, I tried to run it straight so you can't see behind it, but since this is thinner, it's a little bit harder. And you can kind of see the profile of this one is much more humped, but it's in the back, so it doesn't really matter. And compared to using a VESA mount on a stand, this one does take up this space and brings out more forward. So if desk space is priority, you might want to use a different type of stand. And here is the huge power brick taking up all the room in the world. And I'm sure someone will say like I have too many things plugged in, but this is all low wattage, a router, and mostly fans and a VCR. So, and this house is wired for 20 amps, so that's not coming anywhere close for anyone that wants to get offended on the internet. But this plug is huge. You can rotate it, which is nice. You could have it that way, but I find it's a little more stable here instead of having it hang off. I just barely had enough. That's all the slack I have, so horrible for cable management. And I have the power strip right next to the computer. It's just from the length of going up the desk and across and trying to not have it just hang and tie it to at least one post. Really bad design. However, the monitor itself looks great. You can kind of see that bit of a hump there, but again, it's in the back, so it doesn't really matter. It does appear to be bezel-less with the bezel at the bottom, but there is probably 1/4 inch, which is fine. It looks great off, and when it's on, I would rather have the bezel hidden like that than have an actual protruding bezel. I do wish that they made this in black. I don't know why they wouldn't have. Their older one was, and there wasn't any option for this. It would have made it look bezel-less, even though there is one there. So I'm not sure what their thinking was there. And again, on this one, this is the power off or standby indicator. You can actually make it come on when the monitor's on in the settings, but the control stick is here on this model, which is fine. It's a little bit easier than trying to reach around the side. It's a little bit more awkward and it's much smaller, but it works fine. So as long as it doesn't break, there's no issue. I brought this up. I was a little confused. I didn't know if this would support 144 hertz, and it doesn't really matter because I'm not gaming on it. This is just for editing and web browsing and some content, although I usually watch it on my 4K screen on TV or my iPad. But I did want to update my computer monitor because it was now the most outdated of all of them. And this is a Thunderbolt 1 connection, and from what I've read, this cannot support 144 hertz. And in the settings, I changed it to 120. Again, I'm not tech savvy in that regard about all the max resolutions and things that more hardcore PC and Mac people are into, probably more on the PC side. So I moved it down to 120 hertz. I don't know if matching it, since it's double of 60, if that'll make anything any smoother, or if I should just match the refresh rate on the monitor to the 60 that the Mac can output. And I also had to zoom everything in on my browsers to about 125%. I'm not sure if there's some type of scaling aside from just being at a lower resolution. I wouldn't want to do that. I don't know if there's any way that you can just zoom everything in without manually going through, for example, like if I open up Finder and then you can kind of see. Then once I get in here, I have to do everything again. I think there was a way you could batch action it and do it with everything, but it never would work for me. But I'm new to Macs, maybe I'm just stupid. But I'm not sure if there's just an OS thing that you could make some type of script or add on, or if there's just something in Mac OS where you can kind of magnify or zoom in without losing any of the quality, because when I go down to a lower resolution, obviously it makes everything look significantly worse, so I don't want to do that. But with that aside, that's just for anyone that's wondering why I'm running it the way it is, just to show the features of the monitor. And change your sources here. Again, I'm on DisplayPort. There are no speakers on this. I guess it would be okay if they had them, but to me, I always use either headphones or external speakers. And here's what you want. I haven't really configured anything. I like to usually compare off my iPad Pro, and then maybe on my team, just kind of get everything looking the same. But you can customize that. Again, your refresh rate, which I put down to 120, and I'm not sure if I should just drop it to 60. I assume that would save some power. I don't know if doubling what the computer's outputting does anything. I just put this on standard because, again, I'm not gaming with it. Although I could hook up one of my consoles and maybe experiment. And then this is just typical Samsung calibration like the other older monitor had. Very simple. You would probably, for most people, you want it on that. But again, for my research, the Mac Mini is just using DisplayPort 1.1, so I just put it to that. And you can see again, it's 1440p, but it is at 60 Hertz. And again, I haven't configured anything. I will do that off camera. But everything does look really good. Zoomed in, again, these OS things are a little bit smaller. I'll either get used to it or I'll see if I can figure out how to zoom everything in without losing quality. Obviously, this could all be remedied just by buying a more modern computer. And for most people, they're not going to be using a 2012 Mac Mini, so this won't be an issue. This is just to show this is in 1440p, and obviously with MKBHD you're getting probably the best camera recorded quality. So this is probably one of the best videos to try it on. And again, it looks great. I'm not sure if it's matching up perfectly on camera. It's pretty close, but it looks really crisp, so I'm very happy. Simply just for YouTube and stuff, that is really good enough for me. I'm not worried about 4K, at least on a 27-inch screen. I do have a Surface Pro. I think it's the third one. It has a mini DisplayPort, which I assume is probably higher bandwidth than the Thunderbolt 1, because I know it's a few years older. If I would review this monitor, I would definitely hook it up to that one and see if I can get a higher refresh rate and just experiment with that one and see if there are any benefits to a non-gamer for a higher refresh rate. I do have an Xbox One X, PS4 Pro. I might plug one of them in. I know I won't have any problems because I plugged in when I had a PS3 a couple, 4 or 5 years ago with the other monitor, and it played perfectly. There was no input lag, no ghosting. I don't think this one would have any either, especially since it is marketed as a gaming monitor. I know it's not the best, but right now, from what I've seen, it's absolutely perfect. And if it is possible to see, there is the dead pixel. Right, it's really hard to keep this in focus because we're really zoomed in. There you go. And you can kind of tell it's very minor. So I can hardly see it every time I go to look for it. I can't even find it. I rarely notice it, and from a distance, I'm not going to let that be a reason to return it and then risk getting one that's damaged or has any problems. And it's at different angles. I only usually see it when I'm up higher, so at eye level, I don't think it'll be an issue. I know and I guess that would be one advantage of 1440p, is the pixels are much smaller, so if it is a dead pixel, it's going to be even harder to see, and even more so on a 4K screen, but it's not anything that's going to bother me. it does kind of speak, along with everything else, for the maybe lower build quality than the older Samsung Curve that I had, but it's still overall great monitor, and I have 30 days lease with Amazon in addition to the 1-year Samsung warranty if I would need to have it serviced, which I would rather not do, but if it would need returned within the 30 days, obviously I would do that, but I don't think I'll have any issues. I certainly hope I don't. I didn't with the last one after 4 years. I think it's a great looking monitor, off axis again being curved, as long as you're in probably desk range of it, either side, you're not going to notice anything. If you go a little further off, it'll lighten up a little bit, but it's nothing compared to those old laptop screens where it would just completely color shift on you. So I think this is a great monitor. I definitely wanted to show how it packaged, how I put it together, set it up on, at least in my situation. If for some reason you're using a Mac, this is the best, a Mac Mini 2012, this is the best you can get out of it. I know if you read the reviews on Amazon, there's some bad ones, so at least hopefully this can put any apprehensiveness aside, that aside from this one bad pixel, my monitor arrived fine, and if you get a good one, and if you go on Amazon, you're guaranteed to eventually at least get a good one, that you can end up with a great monitor. I might come back for a review. I don't think it'll be necessary. You can tell from here it is a good monitor, and I don't have a gaming PC to really test it, but I'm sure I'll try it with some consoles, and if I would notice anything either really good or really bad, I would come back for a review. So thanks for watching, and you'll see me in the next one. Have a good one.